Hi, I'm Gail Rubin. Welcome to A Good Goodbye, funeral planning for those who don't plan to die. Hi, I'm Gail Rubin, host and author of A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die. Welcome to today's show, brought to you by the fine folks at French Funerals and Cremations. As the doyenne of death, check out the pearls, I'm all about getting the funeral planning conversation started. A doyenne is a woman who's considered senior in a group who knows a lot about a particular subject, and that would be me when it comes to the party no one wants to plan, a funeral or memorial service. By thinking about what you'd want in your funeral and having that conversation before there's a death or illness, you can reduce stress at a time of grief, minimize family conflict, save money, and create a meaningful, memorable good goodbye. That's what this program is all about. Just as talking about sex won't make you pregnant, talking about funerals won't make you dead, and your family will benefit from the conversation. So let's get the conversation started. Our guest today is Stephen Margolin, here to discuss financial issues before and after a funeral. Stephen is a CPA and trusted financial advisor. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So, what's some of your background in this field?
I'm an instructor, a professor at University of New Mexico, and as a practitioner, I've worked with hundreds and thousands of people through all their financial transactions of their life. And I've seen clients die. Actually not seen them die, but I've seen them.
What happens after they die?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So they really didn't have a place to go on all the details that have to be worked through.
There are so many details that need to be worked out when you're building your financial future and then dispensing it afterwards. Your heirs have to take care of those things. So often when I'm having conversations with people about these issues, people say, if I die. But we know it's really not if I die, but when I die.
I think it's a function of age.
Yeah.
When I was younger and talking to younger clients, it was always if I die. Since I've aged and clients have aged, it's when I die.
So people are recognizing the fact that we are not immortal.
That is true.
Okay. Well, you know, I've known Steve for years, and this is the first time I've seen you with a beard, and I understand there's a story behind that beard.
I am participating in the graying of America.
Yeah.
But actually, Gail, it's kind of a sad story. I'm mourning my father's death.
Yes.
He died 2 weeks ago. So not cutting your hair and not cutting your beard or shaving for 2 weeks, for a month is part of the tradition.
For your parents.
Yes.
In the Jewish tradition. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. So I got to experience the grieving. I'm still grieving. It's much different than how I have experienced it vicariously through others. I've had periods of time where I've had an overwhelming sense of doom and sadness.
Wow.
I remember just walking across the house, going into the kitchen was an accomplishment.
Wow.
And then I forgot what I was doing in the kitchen.
Yeah. and people face this all the time. I mean, you helped us with my father-in-law a few years ago when he died, and it was right around tax time. And what do people need to know about death as a CPA when with taxes, say, when somebody dies?
Well, there's a lot of issues. One of the issues is the fact that when someone dies, there still needs to be a tax return for that death. Come and find me is not an appropriate excuse.
Yeah, right. You'll find me over in the cemetery and plot so-and-so.
So there's a final tax return. There's also the income of the estate trust return, a 1041 that needs to be prepared. There are a lot
if they set up a trust.
No, even just
even without.
Yeah, the income received after death. So let's say there's dividends before the accounts are transferred over someplace, they're still in the decedent's name. It's income in respect of a decedent is a technical term, and that goes on a different tax return called a 1041. There's a lot of planning issues in the year of death. One of the big issues is IRAs. What should we do with the IRA? You can either transfer it to a surviving spouse, you can keep it in the decedent's name, or you can,
well, what good is it to keep it in the decedent's name, though?
well, if the
They can't spend it.
True. If they're over 70 and a half and the surviving spouse isn't, and they need the money, or even if the surviving spouse maybe is under 59 and a half, they could take the income and it wouldn't be subject to that extra 10% penalty.
Okay.
But also in the year of death, there are a lot of tax issues related to the fact that there's, for the last time, 2 people on the tax return. So what could happen is you could take a larger than normal distribution, maybe from the spouse's IRA, to get more income in that tax return to take advantage of higher deductions as opposed to just being the next year where there's only one person on the return.
Wow. It's so complicated to think about these things, and people don't think about these things. It's just like, I'm in a couple, I'm filing, joint tax returns, and then one part of that couple is no longer there, and it changes the financial balance of everything.
It does. So I have a lot of experience working with surviving spouses and with the extra tax planning ideas in the year of death.
Okay, well, leading up to that, though, one would hope one has a long life and gets to those golden years. So what do you talk to people, individuals, as well as couples about making it golden years? How is saving your money, investing your money?
The challenge, I'm a financial planner, and so it's all about planning, and there's, we don't know what the future is. We don't know what the stock market is going to do. We don't know how long we're going to live. We don't know how the change in our health is going to be over time and what that's going to cost. We don't know when our roof is going to need to be repaired. So it's all assumptions, and by meeting with your advisor frequently, 2-3 times a year, we can adjust the assumptions so that we have the best laid plan.
A better sense of reality in terms of what's happening with how people are living, how they're spending, how their investments are performing.
Yes, exactly. So one of the keys is, since we don't know what's going to happen, and because I've got a tax background, I look at segregating somebody's future years in 3-year blocks. So we look at how much money are we going to spend from the portfolio over the next 3 years? How much money are we going to spend from the portfolio in years 4 to 6, 7 to 9? So we keep rolling that forward, and we plan for the distributions. Not only do we look at what investments we're going to sell, but we also look at a Roth IRA, an IRA, and a taxable account. With the methodology that we use, I can take a 25-year portfolio and make it last 30 years by reducing the taxes as you take money out.
Well, that would be a wonderful thing to be able to do.
My clients love it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then we'll talk a little bit further, but then, of course, there are bumps in the road, and how do you help smooth out those bumps?
Absolutely true. So with those bumps, I guess the biggest thing is to have enough cash. So I learned my philosophy working with people. I was doing lots and lots of tax returns. I had 800 clients at one time. Sold that business to go into another business where I do comprehensive work for a smaller number of people. But I felt like I had visiting professors. They would come in my office and I would see how they have done up to that part, and I would learn from them what worked and what didn't work. You know what works?
What?
It's the Depression era mentality. Living on less than you earn, saving for a rainy day, and just being able to make those spend versus save decisions on a daily basis so that when there are speed bumps in the road, with extra cash, you can get by over them so much better than somebody that has to take money out of their 401k to get through some short-term cash needs. So it's saving for a rainy day. Then if you've got that habit of saving for a rainy day, you get older and older and older, and then I have to tell them it's raining.
Time to spend some money.
It's time to spend some money.
Yeah,
That's right. You
we
don't
like
need
that. Yeah.
you don't need to buy a used refrigerator.
Yeah, right. Get a new one.
I remember one client, I was meeting with them for the first time and we were going over their budget. And I said, I don't see how much you're spending for your maid. She says, a maid? Could I afford a maid? Yeah, you got lots of money. You're never going to spend it all. Go get a maid. Someone can wash the floors and do some heavy cleaning for you.
I'm all for that. Well, let's take a short break, and when we return, we'll speak further with trusted advisor Steve Margolin.
How can you eat like that?
Relax, dude. I'm freaking dead. It's one of the perks. I can eat whatever the hell I want.
How do I get in on it?
What, the whole death thing?
Yeah.
First off, I mean, look at what you're eating. No wonder you've lived this long. Feed this to the village cow, all right? Bring them a glass of your finest expired milk. Oh, before you go checking out, do you have a will, any funeral arrangements, plans like that?
Did you?
No, and because of that, now my family's in turmoil. They're fighting, bickering over money. Now they're dead broke. Do some real planning, okay, before you figure out your exit strategy. See? Everybody's doing it.
I can't wait to get started.
I've never seen anybody dying to die like you. Good luck, kid.
Welcome back. We're speaking with trusted advisor Stephen Margolin. Let's continue our conversation about financial issues and funerals. And one of the things that happens when somebody dies who has a lot of assets is transferring those assets to the next generation or to the spouse. What are some of the elements that go into knowing about what you need to know financially?
That's a very good question. There's some common things that can be done, such as wills, so that someone reading the will can do what they need to do, what the deceased has wanted to have done. But that will is probated. Mm-hmm. And so probate is a very difficult process, very difficult.
And we will have an estate planning attorney talking with us about that.
Okay, so I'll leave some of the probate process to the estate planning attorney,
Please, yes.
Jim. But other ways to transfer assets are through beneficiary forms. And so all the retirement accounts can have
Oh, so like on
beneficiary
your
forms.
401k or your IRA, you name a beneficiary.
as well as life insurance.
And life insurance, yes.
Another way to do it is through a transfer on death. So I had an interesting experience. I'd heard about transfer of death. I worked with Kathy, and Kathy was getting up there in years, and she has 5 children and 10 grandchildren. So I shared with her that it might take 9 months to probate an estate. How about if we set up transfer on death as the title of your various accounts, so those assets can be transferred more quickly? Well, Kathy died, and I got to see firsthand how that works. It's also a difficult, challenging process. So let's say you have 500 shares of a particular mutual fund, and you have 5 beneficiaries on a transfer on death account. You have to split those 500 shares, 100 shares each. You have to open up 5 accounts.
Wow.
Transfer 100 shares into each one of these accounts. What if you got 15 or 20 holdings? It is a nightmare.
Oh, man.
It was so difficult. 10 grandchildren, 5 children, plus 5 children on the IRA. We had to set up 5 different IRA accounts to receive 1/5
Wow.
of the account. It was so challenging, and the children, adult children, were looking for the money that was supposed to happen right away, and they
months?
nagged at my assistant so much that she quit.
Oh.
She said, "I'm working with vultures that are picking on the carcass
Oh,
of the
man.
deceased." So when you're working with family members and giving them their money, and as quick as you can do it is not quick enough.
Wow.
Everybody wants that money.
Give me the money.
That's right.
Oh,
So
man.
it's beneficiary designations. Also, in reviewing your will, that's important. And the will should be updated periodically. I review wills. I reviewed the will of a couple, and they came in and I read it. And what it said was that their 2 children named David and Stephen were going to inherit some money. And I said, yes, but David and Stephen are married now. And what this says that if one of your children had predeceased you and you were incompetent, had dementia where you couldn't make any decisions, their wives, who are daughters to you, would not receive anything. Is that how you want to do it? So people write a will and they think that it's current just because they did it. But so I read it often and ask them the questions, has anything changed? So working with an advisor is important because it's an objective, it's a third set of eyes, an objective sense to look at what you're doing.
And in fact, one of the things that French provides after a funeral is this Aftercare booklet, which can help walk through so many of these details. Social Security, bank accounts, insurance, safe deposit boxes, Medicare, just all kinds of different things that you need to know about that you helped our family with when my father-in-law died.
That is an excellent book. Speaking of books, when my father died, we referred to a book called A Good Goodbye. One of the things that we did different with that book that we had not thought about is we got a limousine so that we didn't have the stress of driving an hour from my parents' home to the mortuary. So everybody climbed into the limo. We had a driver, took us to the mortuary. We had the service, took us to a restaurant for dinner afterwards, and brought us home without us having to worry about driving. And we could just stay in the moment and not have to worry about bumper to bumper traffic in Los Angeles.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have read that book, Gail, and I highly recommend it. It's full of good information. What should you write on a thank you card when someone dies? They send you a card, they send you flowers. Well, there's wording in there for what you can say.
Yeah.
It's a very good checklist.
Thank you, thank you. But let's talk a bit about when you're shutting down somebody's financial life. I mean, there are credit cards.
Oh, yes.
There are, insurance policies. How does somebody go about handling that? Death certificates is what you need.
You do, and
how many do you recommend a family get? It really depends on how complicated their financial lives are.
It is. 25 is a good number.
25?
There
Really?
are so many accounts. They want copies of death certificates. Sometimes they won't take a copy. They want the original death certificate. But so there's a lot of things to shut down, just like you're saying, Gail. There's credit cards, cutting them down, shutting them down. There's also making sure that you've established credit in the surviving spouse's name. Because if everything's in the credit of the deceased, the surviving spouse may need more money. What if they want to refinance the house?
Yeah.
And if they don't have credit?
Wow.
Maybe they can't refinance the house. Maybe they can't get a line of credit. So one of the things that I've done for people, even with a line of credit, is use a line of credit when the stock market's down. So you're not selling stocks at a loss in a down year. But there's credit cards, there's getting the life insurance proceeds. When you call the credit card company, you should ask, is there a small life insurance component of this? There might be a $2,000 life insurance issued by the credit card company.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I think the other thing is going into the safe deposit box and reading things before the funeral. I think one of the biggest fears that people could have is, what if after a cremation they read that the deceased didn't want to be cremated?
But they didn't make any arrangements for burial.
They didn't make any arrangements, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
after the fact, they're just reacting and in a very grieving state.
Well, and accessing a safe deposit box at a bank, do you need special paperwork to be able to do that?
Well, the surviving spouse would be a signer, so they could go into it.
But what if you're not married? What if you're just a single person?
ideally they would have a second person on the account.
Oh, okay.
So I think that, I don't know how you would do that. I imagine you'd have to have a court order, and who knows how long it's going to take to get through court.
Wow.
So knowing where your papers are, even knowing where what your passwords are, and what your banking online. Very often you have one spouse that's the banker of the family, and the other one just leaves everything to the spouse. And what if that person is the one that died?
Yeah. No, with my own parents, I asked them for a printout of whatever online accounts and those passwords. And you have to be able to trust somebody in your life with that kind of information and just let it rest with that person, because we never know when it's going to happen, and you need to have access to the information.
Yeah, right. Which brings up another point.
Yes.
Trusting. These emails are so creative. So as you age, sometimes reading these things sound like, yes, I should give you all my information. This could be a scam email from a bank verifying your account number, or your check didn't clear, or you have a big refund from the IRS coming. It scares me. I get these emails.
I got this very official looking email from E-Trade that had a zip file attached to it.
Yes.
And I was like, should I open this? Wait a minute, I don't have an account with this.
So I think when people
deleted it.
age, it's nice to have somebody younger that can help answer some of these questions. The Nigerian scam has certainly gotten way more creative than just an account in Nigeria that I need you to sign for so you can share all this money with me.
Any last tips on how one can better prepare for your financial future when you're no longer here?
I think it's cash flow. It's thinking through what you want for your other people. When you're the surviving spouse, that you have enough cash. One of the things that I do is I monitor their bank balance. I have them bring in their account, so that I don't want a surviving spouse eating tuna fish for dinner every night, because they don't know how much money they have and they want it to last. So getting a financial advisor, someone to look with you at some of the decisions, because we're not in our right mind.
Do you find you're working more with elderly women when their husbands die?
I do. I work with a lot of elderly women.
And very often, it was the man in the family who took care of the finances.
Yes, that's true.
So there is a certain amount of financial education, I guess, that you need to help those ladies with.
Well, that's good theory. The reality is that they're never going to learn. They're not going to be a great checkbook writer, balancer, and everything. It's just giving them the tools. So the tools might be that we have a certain amount of money that just stays in the checkbook. They live their life how they normally do, and then I just monitor their bank statements every quarter or so to see that they're not spending too much or not spending too little, and talk with them.
I like that idea that it's raining, go ahead and spend your money.
It is. Saving for a rainy day, absolutely true.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of people that have $2 million and are looking for a used refrigerator, and they're in their 80s. You're not going to spend your money. You don't have to buy a used refrigerator.
So let's enjoy life. Let's laugh and live while we're alive.
And have a good life.
Absolutely.
Spend time doing the things we want to do.
And then we can have a good goodbye.
Absolutely.
So, Steve, thank you so much for coming in today. And I want to thank Stephen Margolin, our trusted advisor, CPA and CFP, and a big thank you to the French family of companies for supporting this program. Join us next week as we talk about a few other financial issues. And you can find more information on this topic and other topics at my website, agoodgoodbye.com. So remember, talking about sex won't make you pregnant, and talking about funerals won't make you dead. Start a conversation today.
Proper estate planning enables you to pass your possessions and your assets to the people and organizations that you care about. By planning with a living trust, you could avoid the high cost of probate and minimize taxation. The attorneys at Morris Hall have been helping thousands of clients pass their assets as they intended. To schedule your free consultation, call us at 505-889-0100 or visit us at morristrust.com.
A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die is a light touch on a serious subject. The book has everything you need to know before you go. A Good Goodbye helps you reduce stress and family conflict, save money, and create a meaningful, memorable good goodbye. It's available in paperback and all ebook formats through online retailers and at agoodgoodbye.com. Start a conversation today.
Why are we talking about this at the dinner table? Just put my ashes in a coffee can or something. Please pass the salt, dear.
Can I help you, ma'am?
Yeah. Which can would you recommend putting my mom's ashes in?
I think I heard ashes.
I'm sorry, my mom's cremated remains.
That sounds the same.
Your mom didn't even like coffee. She drank tea.
You can't avoid your funeral. Pre-plan and take the burden off someone else.
Hi, I'm Gail Rubin, host and author of A Good Goodbye, Funeral Planning for Those Who Don't Plan to Die, and creator of The Newly Dead Game. The Newly Dead Game is like the classic TV show The Newlywed Game, but the questions test how well you know someone else's last wishes. It's a fun way to get the funeral planning conversation started. For more information about The Newly Dead Game, visit agoodgoodbye.com.